Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Art Department podcast. This week we have a special guest. It's Ben Procter. And for those who don't know, shame on you. But anyway, Ben is an art director, illustrator, and most recently production designer who has worked on all your favorite movies. Everything from like Superman Returns, Prometheus, a lot of Transformers, Tron Legacy, Matrix Reloaded, and Revolutions, Pirates of the Caribbean. And for quite a while now, he's been in Pandora, working on Avatar, Avatar The Way of Water, and the new one, Fire and Ash, which is going to come soon. And he's probably going to work on the one after that as well. But anyway, we want to hear all about that, of course. But anyway, here's Ben Procter. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Great to talk to you guys.
And maybe you can just give us like a quick rundown of kind of what brought you into the industry, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was the typical geeky, sci-fi interested kid, from a young age. I used to read a lot of sci-fi novels and short stories, and was interested in Japanese animation, and then I discovered Japanese hobby culture of robot model kits and all that kind of thing. And I was lucky to grow up in New York City, where it's not like known for that kind of thing, but there was a place called Forbidden Planet, if anybody remembers, that was a famous store that had a couple locations. And it just opened my eyes to the world of like hardcore geekery of world building and all that stuff. I just would never have known that that was out there. And of course, I'm watching American movies and getting inspired by those as well. But Emmanuel, I know you like Macross. That was a big one for me, was Robotech when I was little. And so, and one thing I've realized over the years is that the 80s were like the pinnacle of vehicle heroism. And there was barely a movie that didn't have a vehicle that was somehow made into some heroic element to it, right? Whether it was KITT or Blue Thunder or like you name it, man. There was just pilot, driver, vehicle heroism stuff. So it was impossible for my young mind that was interested in mechanical things and science fiction to not kind of have an emotional response to those kinds of movies and that kind of stuff, and so that translates into like robot heroism as well. And I'm sure a lot of us feel the same way, about those design elements that we perceived a certain way when we were kids. And so, yeah, I was just like into that stuff. And then, it took me a long time to realize that people did it for a living. I mean, everyone says the same thing, right? Everyone is innocent as a kid. I loved Blade Runner when I was a kid. And of course, Sid Mead as a visual futurist, the coolest title ever, like that caught my eye. I'm like, what is that? Wow. So, I saw some of his illustrations actually in Japanese magazines. And so it's like, I literally can't read it. And I'm just looking at these pictures, and there was enough English that I saw Sid Mead and I'm like, oh, this is the guy. So, super inspired by that. And I'm dwelling too long on the early stuff. But anyway, super geek kid. I think it dawned on me, at some point, as the Pixar movies were getting better and better looking, right? That like I think A Bug's Life came out maybe when I was in, well, I don't know, college or something. But anyway, I just thought that CG animated movies are the coolest, and I was into like the idea of the rendering and the lighting and all that stuff. So I wanted to get into visual effects or be a lighter texture artist at an animation house or whatever that might be. In New York, I looked into it, and basically I would have had to reverse commute up the Hudson to go to Blue Sky, and I was told like you're never going to get the job. I sort of looked into it. It was really hard. I had no portfolio to support that kind of thing. My family was in the advertising business. I looked into commercial production houses that would produce, like CG animation for commercials and stuff. That was just like, I was unprepared for that also, right? Like, they're like, well, you can work in the mailroom, and then maybe in a couple of years you'll be lucky enough to do like the bubble animations for the shampoo and like whatever it was. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So, I realized that I got to get to LA. How am I going to do this? I made a couple great contacts. John Haley is a VFX supervisor who I believe still works with ImageWorks. It's possible he's moved on. I can't remember, but met him through a friend, and I was just, he was working on a game at Lucas, no, at DreamWorks Interactive. It was like a really, really early World War II game. It would be a famous one. I just can't remember the name of it, and I saw like real concept art, like on someone's monitor, not like in a book, not in an exotic context, but like somebody's doing it, right? And it was so fucking good. I mean, I wonder what I would think of those images now. I think they probably were really good, but like they were beyond good to my eyes at that point. I just couldn't believe it. And of course, some tattooed cool dude is the one doing it with and he's like, hey, want to see my sketchbook? And wow, it's like artist people, holy fuck, this is where they live. They're on the West Coast. And so I knew I had to move out here and convince my girlfriend, who quickly became my fiance, because we had to, kind of start to put a ring on it to sort of move out together to the West Coast and stuff. And then I also met in over the internet. I met Eric Hansen, who's still a dear friend of mine. Well, I mean, John Haley is too, who was a VFX dude at the time at DD. He did some like really iconic shots from Fifth Element, and he milked the shit out of it on his website with like really great renders of his assets and stuff. And he was one of the few people that like I'm like, here's a website. It's a guy. Oh my God, I'm gonna email him, and he'll never return the email, right? But he did. He was super helpful. I owe him a lot, and he put me in touch with some people in LA. And and I worked at a shitty little matte painting company for 10 minutes and was totally abused and overworked and got in a car accident. And just like a rough start.
Oh my God.
I worked at Pixel Liberation Front for 3 or 3.5 years, something like that, doing previs and kind of small project, kind of garage visual effects type stuff, set extension, virtual set design kind of things, which was cool. Did get to work on some bigger projects like the Matrix sequels. And I know one of you guys, which one is it, worked on the recent Matrix movie? You. Oh, okay. Anyway, got it. Yeah. I was just really cool shit. But anyway, uh, at some point on I think the Matrix was where I met George Hall and Simon Merton and Mark Cabana and some other illustrator people, and again had this experience of like, oh, here are the physical in the flesh dudes doing this cool stuff, and that was really great work, right? And so I thought I got to make the jump. Like I can't keep doing the previs. I like it, but it's not my thing. And I managed to get a job on the Terminal of the Spielberg movie, working for Alex McDowell through Ron Frankel, who now has his own company called Proof that does previs. He helped me out to get that job, so I owe him a lot on that one, and I owe Colin Green and all the PLF people a lot because I just learned so much on the job in that early. I mean, it was like it's crazy, and it was great people. Like we're still in touch, and people have gone on to do great things. Rich Lee, amazing music video director, commercial director. Anyway, I could name names, but there's no point in this context. But yeah, got into the art department. Was very much a 3D person then, right? Like my knowledge of 2D painting was like, oh, I can do a pencil drawing and then like I can color it in. I mean, it was like that era anyway, but it was especially that was my skill level, right? I mean, it wasn't quite that era. I mean, I'm sure Craig Mullins and certain people were already ripping out amazing paintings, pure digital, da da da. I just didn't know anything about how to do that. And so it was more of a 3D person, but that turned out to be really useful because I'd done previs and I can do 3D. So suddenly I have an attention span to do stuff carefully if I have to, and to talk about scale and talk about camera angles and all that. So it was actually, the education in previs was great. And then I think over time, I just got more and more comfortable with 2D in Photoshop and whatnot. By the time I'm on a Transformers movies doing robot designs, there's no pencil sketches. I'm just jumping in and doing really, really rough stuff, and then kit bashing photos on top, and then painting it all into Unity in some way. Yeah, and then it just became like a 2D, 3D illustrator, doing environments. Obviously, a lot of hard surface. I'm certainly not known as an organics person or a historical thing. I consider that to be a kind of a flaw in my portfolio and something I'd like to remedy. And my personal project, which we may get into a little bit later, incorporates some stuff that I've never gotten to do in my job. But yeah, so hard surface sci-fi stuff. Ultimately, again, you listed all the movies. I've been so fortunate to work with like just unbelievable directors, production designers, fellow illustrators, art directors, all that stuff on these kinds of projects. I mean, the best of the best. And in an era where you still went to the office and there was a fair number of people, right? So it was like party time. I mean, it was just fantastic to hang out with all those folks in person. I mean, my feeling, even though I'm stuck in the ivory tower of Avatar so firmly that I can't even pretend to know what's going on out there at this point. But my feeling is that that's a more and more unique situation to have like these big teams of artists getting to physically go to lunch together and do all that stuff. And so I'm so grateful for that moment, in my career. And then, eventually Rick Carter, production designer, one of the two designers of Avatar, just put the bug in my ear about production designing, and he was like, you could do this, like you really. And I'm like, really, I'm scared to do it. But he kind of talked me through it, and how to go about it. I ended up pitching to production design a TV show for Spielberg, so I had to pitch to Spielberg, and like I had these few little, I didn't get the job, but it was still, a good experience to kind of put yourself out there as someone who has to present ideas and not just make a picture, right? And of course, those are very related, but it's a different art form to some extent. And ended up getting a job doing co-designing Ender's Game because I was an illustrator on. There was a test that we did at DD, and much trying to follow on the success of the Tron test that was done before Tron Legacy, like a short form kind of thing, really nicely rendered CG thing. That, I mean, everyone has seen that. It's beautiful. The test that was done. I mean, the movie looks so much like the test because they just did such a great job on it. But for Ender's Game, same thing. We want to do a bunch of concept design to support a quick little Ender's Game test, which I think is out there as well. And it shows the battle room and it shows the suit and like a little kid spinning around and shooting the gun in the battle room. I guess I won the trust of the director, Gavin Hood, who's a great South African guy, who's a super nice dude. And they didn't think I knew how to build a set. So it turned out that my good friend Sean Howarth and I were both, pitching against one another to production design. And at some point, they're like, "What? You guys know one another? Like, would you just work together? Because you like perfectly complement one another." I'm like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, that'd be great." So we designed that together. And then I did some other intermediary stuff, and then I've just been on Avatar sequels uh, friggin' forever. I mean, I want to say that 12, oh God, it's approaching 12 years if I'm not already past that at this point.
Oh my
That's not
Wow.
Avatar in general. I mean, if you add the 1.5 years or whatever I was on the first one, it gets up into 13 and a half years,
Oh my God.
um, which is just, it
crazy.
feels as insane as it sounds. Um,
You must dream in blue people.
it just becomes I hate to say it, it becomes a bit more of a corporate job at a certain point, right? It's not the kind of feverish freelance wild world of being a production designer on a normal movie where you've got a limited budget and suddenly have to run to Romania to scout and like real production design is one thing, right? And it has a certain rhythm to it and it's a stress level. This is just more stretched out. It's just like take all that stress, but stretch it way the fuck out, and of course there are moments of terror and there are real challenges, but you're working, with I'm not saying that we always have the resources that we want, all that kind of thing, but we're still spoiled by comparison to almost anybody else, right? So and additionally, Dylan and I guess I should say, obviously working with Dylan Cole as my co-designer is friggin' amazing. We can, when we're talking about, art neuroses, we can get into my inferiority complex with regard to Dylan's illustrations later. We'll get deep into that. But anyway, for both of us, we're very involved in the franchise on a more general level instead of just the films, So we deal with publishing, we deal with games, we deal with the theme parks. And it's super fun, but you find yourself in being as much as of a brand ambassador as anything else, right? You have to sort of explain the ethos and the design concepts of Avatar to people in whatever way meets them where they are in the thing that they're trying to do, right? I mean, we work with Cirque du Soleil. I mean, we all kinds of great stuff. And what a privilege, right? I mean, it's yet another spoiled, kind of lucky thing in my career is to not only have the stable employment, but to get to branch out and meet people who are the top of their game doing totally different stuff. I mean, the Imagineering team is like awesome. I mean, they're really nice and they're so good at what they do. I'm just blown away every time we meet by their, I think all kinds of people who do creative stuff have to balance the creative instincts and the sort of goals and the vision against whatever the practical limitations are, whatever the mechanics of that thing are, right? That's true for everything. But the fucking mechanics that they have to deal with of like people basically trying to kill themselves, at all times in these parks, and dealing with municipal authorities to get permits for things and just every thing you can imagine that can go wrong, has gone wrong in these parks, and they have to think about all that stuff constantly. And it's amazing to watch their brains flip hats like so skillfully. It's wild. Yeah, so I'm just babbling now, but do you want to steer me into any element of this?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
sure. I
mean,
mean,
there's definitely a lot. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. So maybe for the first part, let's kind of piggyback on what you where we just are at this point with Avatar, and maybe talk
Yeah.
about a little bit, yeah, about like the job at hand. Like, so you
Uh-huh.
co production designing, right? Like,
Yeah.
is how does how does that work? Do you have like a particular set of things that you look after, like certain
Yeah.
specialties that you focus on versus Dylan's doing other stuff? Like,
Yeah.
can you maybe go a
Yeah. I mean,
bit
the
more into
simplest way
that?
to think about it is that he's Pandora and I'm Earth. That's the simplest way to think about it, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
the planet, the creatures, the tribal stuff, the Navi's architecture, arts and crafts, all, that whole look, the beautiful landscapes, basically everything people really pay money to see. That's
Oh, come on.
right. And then I make the death machines that go and like tromp on and burn all that shit is kind of the way that it works, right? So if it's a science lab, if it's a piece of motion graphics, a hologram, a starship, whatever it might be, anything hard surface, anything human, anything technological, that's all my stuff. And as you might imagine, that ends up being a lot of the live action sets, right? So if you look at the screen time of how much hard surface there is in these movies, I should just have fired myself a long time ago because it's just not, it's like in actual minutes, it's not that much. But in terms of the difficulty of production, because we built so many sets, that's just a rabbit hole of fractal detail that you have to get into to wrangle the process of designing and building sets and doing it in a foreign country because we shoot our live action in New Zealand, as you probably know. And so, basically having a much more in-depth connection to an entirely separate talented art department, which is the New Zealand crew down there. So I have to deal with a lot more of that than Dylan does. So anyway, so it's sort of it does have its way of balancing out. But at the same time, when it comes to like the virtual production, the way that we do capture and all that stuff, I still have to, and it's a good, as you guys can imagine, I came from a 3D background, right? So I already think digitally and kind of in polygons and textures and things like that anyway. So it's not a stretch for me, but the worlds that we design, we tend to build them kind of like in their whole cloth. Like you build much more than you're ever going to need, and then Jim scouts it virtually with the VCam on stage and finds the areas that he's interested in, or he tries out whether the blocking of a scene works in the set using the troupe actors who wear the performance capture outfits. This is a process we do before we get into proper capture with both the troupe and the expensive big name actors. To kind of as a way to use the 3D camera system and the volume to kind of like kick the tires on the sets and figure out what we're doing. So I still have to address all of that world, right? And all of the set extensions, because as big as the sets are that we build, there's that much more, right? There's just, like I built like a bunch of sets for the new factory ship, that big ship in Avatar 3, but those are tiny little, those are like little band-aids on the size of the ship overall, right? So even though I'm doing hard surface, just like Dylan, I'm designing things at scope in a virtual way, in a much bigger world. The bridgehead, the human base, we're going to go back to that in much more detail in 3. And so, yeah, so there's differences, but also similarities. And also, we're good friends by now, as you might imagine. And, there's a lot of mutual respect. And so, we look over one another's shoulder. There are team members who are good at organics and hard surface who go back and forth between us. So in one way or another, we are co-designing it as well. There's a division, but there's also a unity of kind of making sure that the look of things ties together nicely.
Right. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, that's a good explanation.
yeah. I mean, it's. I think it's often. I mean, all the great like technical, all the ships and everything. So everything we geek out about, right? That's what we love, um, right?
Yeah.
So I was wondering, like, I mean, part of it, like part of the Avatar brand, you kind of inherited from the previous production designer, right?
Mhm. Yep.
But was there like was there a very deliberate attempt to balance the design of anything human, um, to keep it more grounded, to keep it very relatable in
Yeah,
comparison to the very like out there kind of Navi culture and everything.
for sure, for
It's
sure.
it's often compared that like even though it's a couple of hundred years in the future, like the military aspects, the technological aspects almost feel a bit like toned down in order to be
Huh?
more relatable, right?
Totally, totally. No, that's exactly right. I mean, there are moments where we have discussions with Jim about like, wouldn't they have some, head-up radar thing that would let them see blah blah blah, or or do we have rail guns in our world? I mean, like all sci-fi movies, they jump into different technological conceits. Can we go there? And the answer always ends up kind of being no. I mean, for storytelling reasons, because if the RDA really was what it really is, they would just win. I think anybody who's a fan of military gear knows that they would win again and again and again and again. I don't care how many, whale buddies you have. So, but the you can't have that happening in the story, right? And so there's a deliberate detuning of the capability of it for storytelling reasons, right? But I also think that there's a kind of a two-prong, kind of deliberate, sort of in a stylistic or a tonal way, wanting to keep it in a more conventional kind of mode. I think to make it just more relatable for people, these are military guys. Like I recognize the kind of guys these are. I recognize the kind of gear they have. And what that does is it starts to steer you. And I mean, everyone kind of knows this. I mean, Jim's been very open about the kind of Vietnam War analogy of Avatar 1 that he had in mind. It starts to play into historical references that I think in the back of your mind, unconsciously, you're kind of feeling the gravitas of these kind of cruel, confrontations and situations, much more so because it's relatable, right? I mean, again, I mean, all sci-fi movies will try to relate to history in some way. Obviously, Star Wars goes for the Nazi costumes and the stuff. I mean, it's not an uncommon thing, but we sort of stick to, I think in the case of Avatar 1, a Vietnam era US military vibe, and with the sequels, all I've done is kind of like update it to the present day, basically, but not beyond. You'll see motifs in the designs that are kind of like the F-35, or look kind of like an Apache, or look kind of, Apache's like a 900-year-old vehicle by now, but you know what I mean, like more state of the art, currently fielded stuff. The thing that I wanted to do anyway, and so okay, and so that relatability and stuff. I mean, for me, that it goes beyond just the vehicles. It goes into the science stuff. Even though we have like these crazy conceits of like the link system, like that alone is like a wild fucking sci-fi thing. Oh, and they've got brain backups. Like society altering technologies that we just use like as like, oh, it's mentioned once or whatever. So, but the stuff that plays in the story tends to be just more understandable. I mean, the audience, Jim is a strong-willed guy, but I think that what a lot of studio execs have discovered to their peril is that what he's fighting for is the audience. He's not fighting for his own ego. He's fighting for the movie that he knows people will enjoy and people will understand, right? And so we'll do designs where he likes it, but it's just a little too far. It's just like Matt. If my brain doesn't understand what I'm looking at in whatever 40 frames, people are just gonna tune out. So and look, I'm a fan of the real world, so for me this is not a problem. I mean, maybe there are designers who would feel handcuffed by it. I find that I'm most inspired by finding reference of real stuff that I've never seen before, and like, what is that? So for me, it's kind of perfect. In a larger sense, for me, this is just my one little bullshit line that I think about. I don't even know that there's any reality to this whatsoever. But in the messaging of the film, right? Obviously, the big strong message is, oh boy, these humans are terrible. They do bad stuff to the planet, and of course, the good guys try to keep them from doing it. And da da da. I'm oversimplifying, but that's the basic conceit. But for me, I hope that the relatability of the human world and the humans and the industrial equipment and the military equipment unconsciously makes certain people think like, oof, like that's not so different from what we do now. Like that looks like exactly what we do to our planet, right? Again, does anyone ever, have this eureka moment or the way that I'm hoping to make it happen? Who knows? But that's, I want the RDA to be not so cartoonishly evil that they can be dismissed as something like that's from another universe, right? I personally want the RDA to have a little bit of an appeal to it, right? I came up with this phrase high performance cruelty as a way to as like a design motif for the vehicles and for a lot of stuff. Like I kind of want it to be cool. Like I want you to like for catch yourself like what oh fuck I'd love to be on those boats and like out there doing this stuff da 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 for a brief moment to realize, yeah, okay, these are the emotions that make people go and do bad stuff, or you know, I throw in a little bit of like a propaganda element too. We're going to see some a little bit more of that in 3 than we ever saw before. You know, but the idea that you know, evil usually comes from people just doing their job, or evil comes from people doing something they think is good, not bad, right? You know, as opposed to just a you know stormtrooper guy who's in a literally a gloss black outfit in case you missed it that he was the bad guy, you know. And I love all that. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that's not what we do on Avatar, right? So I feel like there was a double aspect to your question, and I think I only answered part of it. But what was there a second
No,
part
no,
to
no.
that?
I think perfectly answered. I think you already led into the next one that I wanted to talk about. Sorry, last one, Emmanuel. Before you can shoot
No,
some
no, no,
questions.
go for it.
Um, and it's about the world building itself and what you think makes this particular world stick with audiences so well. And I think you mentioned a couple of points already. Be it the balance between the strange and the familiar, the balance of like, and I think what you just said, like, I think there's such a multifacetedness about the characters in the movie that like neither the humans or the Navi are all good or all bad. That you
That's
can
going to
say
be
like,
much
oh,
more so in
it's
this next movie too. Yeah,
exactly,
that's a lot more of that's coming.
exactly. It's not just like, oh, it's that evil James Bond villain Blofeld who wants to blow up the world. No, it's like personified evil of humanity as a industrial complex that exploits
Yes.
exploits other places that are far removed from our own experience, and but still like we're all this tacit approval is like underlying,
Totally.
and it's very very interesting. But is there, I mean, is there anything maybe more like, because a lot of these things are very like unconsciously there, and I think
Yeah.
people understand them even though they cannot like express it as well as maybe you can. But is there anything else that you maybe do, Dylan and you and James Cameron
Yeah.
and other people, to enrich that world? Something that you like always think about when designing stuff?
Well, I think that there's techniques that or tactics that I was just talking about for hard surface that apply equally to the organic world. And then there's another level which I think only Jim brings to it. I mean, I think we try to fulfill it, but I think it's fundamentally his own kind of almost spiritual thing he brings to the whole thing. And so the tactic thing is just that using finding real world analogs for something that you want to design, and then leaning into it, being unashamed to like, yeah, they've got cat noses. Get over it. You know, you think that's not exotic enough? Fuck off. You know, and you know, all of the creatures, you know, pretty much have an Earth analog, right? This something, you know, the Titanothere is it's kind of like a a bull running into a bull elephant in the jungle or something like that. It's an herbivorous large mammal, da da da. You know, so if you start to look at it, there's the creativity is in the execution, not in trying to find something that is so wild that is truly alien and truly off-putting, right? We sort of like edge along that and find like just the right match. So you know, so that when people watch an underwater scene on Pandora and they see the fish swimming through and oh, it's got like longer tendrils that I've never seen on an earthfish or whatever, but fundamentally it's tapping into the same emotional things that we feel about our own planet, right? So it's kind of like yeah, there's tacky ways of saying it, so I'm not going to say that. But you're basically, it's an invitation to appreciate Earth all over again. It's sort of seeing your own planet through a different lens, right? And the conflict between, you know, the corporate industrial powers and the Na'vi is again another lens. I mean, sci-fi always does this, right? It always kind of creates a metaphorical version of something that's real for you to sort of like get over your defenses and then open your mind to what it's trying to say. But But in this case, I think that that partial familiarity is why it's easy to fall in love with Pandora. It's kind of like Earth on crack, you know. It's just beyond. And then I think again, like you know, you know, I'm sure that there are people who are pissed off at us in some way or another for like cultural appropriation or something like that. But the reality is that the Na'vi are a composite of so many different cultures from Earth, and you know, and they're going through a dynamic that is very real for certain indigenous people around the world, right? I mean, they really do get their land taken by industrial concerns and all this stuff. So the fact that we're leaning into those real things, I think, gives the story much more resonance. You know, it just keeps it in the realm of kind of raw emotion and not something that's in a galaxy far, far away. You know, it sounds like I'm just pissing on Star Wars in this interview. I'm sorry. I love Star Wars as much as anybody else does. But you know, but sometimes we have to think about how we differentiate ourselves, and it definitely is a little bit different, even though Star Wars is, you know, in its own way, like in Andor and other things that has done this move of swerving right back to something much closer to home and closer and familiar and in a very powerful way. So that's certainly not, it's a trick that they use too. But uh okay, that answer the question?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, definitely.
the other thing though is that, you know, Jim is you know, everyone knows he's brilliant, everyone knows he's demanding, this, that, and the other. You know, he actually, even though he conducts himself in a very kind of like, I don't want to say alpha male because that makes him sound like a total asshole. He's not. But in a kind of more straightforward dude kind of a way, you know. I mean, he's you know, he's probably more likely to go to the, you know, to the desert to shoot guns or whatever for fun on the weekend. Or at least when he was younger. Maybe this is not true now, but you know, let's say he's just as likely to go to shoot guns on the weekend as he is to you know, go to an ashram and do some spiritual thing or whatever. But he fundamentally clearly, you know, from these movies has something inside of him that kind of needed to get out, you know, and a sensitivity to you know, to the way that indigenous people live in harmony with nature, to the kind of spiritual aspects of nature, to connection, to all these things. And it's just this really rich philosophical, conceptual, spiritual realm, you know, that he's just again, like unabashedly just dove into with these Avatar films, you know. And because he's a great filmmaker, storyteller, he knows he can't just do some airy-fairy conceptual thing. He's got to root it in a you know, a heart-wrenching story that has real people and has family dynamics and all this kind of thing. And so he's found this canvas for himself in the Avatar movies where he can just go deep into so many different areas he's interested in. And I think that there's I don't know, he found it with the music, with the look, with the vibe. He found it in the first movie. There, you're 100% right. There's something special about Pandora that touches people. You know, I always I get choked up sometimes watching sections of the movie, and I didn't expect it at all. Like the scene. I'm not wiping a tear right now. It looked like I was, but the scene of Loak becoming friends with Pycon in Avatar 2, right? The sort of man meets whale, you know, boy meets new friend kind of thing. For me, I mean, obviously there's the heart-wrenching family stuff at the end, which is super powerful. But in terms of that thing that just pulls your spirit right out of you and just pulls you to the screen and just gets your heart, man, that really gets me, that scene. And I think it's because it's about connection. It's about acceptance. It's about kind of finding yourself. You know, I mean, Jake rediscovers himself in a new context in the first film, right? And Loak, by befriending this exile whale in many different dimensions, finds himself again, or maybe even for the first time, and finds acceptance that he's never had before. And it's beautiful. It's just emotionally recognizable and beautiful. And again, it's a connection between humankind and nature. It's a reconciliation between humans that we know we're such exploiters of nature. And it's a kind of almost a religious ritual of forgiveness or something. There's something for me that's incredibly powerful about that. And so, you know, everyone I'm sure has their different elements of the movies that they love or that touches them, but there's just so much there.
Definitely. Sorry, Emmanuel, do you wanna continue?
No, you know, I
No,
find it very
yeah.
fascinating. You know, just listening to the stories. But I mean, I guess I'm curious. You know, when you were building this team, you know, obviously you built an art department. And that's where I actually met you, and it was a huge one at that. Uh, but then, I find it interesting because, like you said, you've been on this for like 13 years, and that amount of time that the artists were there,
Yeah.
they're gone now. But the movies are still being made, and I'm just wondering, well, how does that all work? And that
Sure.
seems very different than the norm. So I'd
Yeah.
love to hear about that.
Well, look, when we came on, like when we came on in late 2013, like late August of 2013, which just sounds like it's in the Cenozoic era. I mean, it's just absurd to even say that, but a long time ago. Um, it was just me, Dylan, and Joe Pepe, our character designer. And that was it. And for a while we cranked along with that, and then we brought in Fausto and David Levy and Jay Bach and Steve Messing. Anyway, we started to bring in other people. Sorry if I John Park. Anyway, anybody whose name I forgot in the first thing, I apologize. But anyway, it did grow organically. But in that entire first period, part of the reason we were on for so long, which is also unconventional, is the fact that we didn't have finished scripts at all at that point, right? So Jim was doing parallel processing, working with a writing team, which is unusual for films. He was breaking the story of all the different scripts of the entire story arc that he wanted to do with these films in the way that you would break like the seasons of or the episodes of a TV show. It's much more of like a TV model of that. How to figure it out. Jim knew what he wanted. He had a lot of the basic ideas, but he was smart enough to bring really talented screenwriters into the room to kind of flesh it out and find the characters further and all that stuff. And so we were doing visual exploration while they were doing story exploration in parallel. And then like occasionally they'd come up and visit our art department to see stuff. And we would find out little snippets of the story from documents that Jim would give us. But it was a very open-ended exploratory time. And so to answer your question, like how could we be like continuing to make these movies without this giant team sitting there? Part of the reason for that is that we covered a lot of ground on all the future movies back then, right? For many years, we were working on either working on things, not even knowing what movie it might end up in, either because we didn't know, but Jim did, or because even Jim didn't know, right? I mean, there were elements that were just going to play somewhere, but he didn't quite know when. And then there were things, of course, that were always going to be for later films, but we didn't know that when we started working on it. I mean, the first thing I did is something from Avatar, I guess 4 and 5. That's featured more in 5 than 4. The very first thing I did, like a big thing, and no clue. I had no idea. So essentially, we've done like an even geological layer of artwork across everything already. Like it's just sitting there on the server right now. But that being said, the difference between having that level of work and the level of work that you need to actually execute the films is a giant leap, right? So we had like an even coding of 2 through 5, and then we went full bore into 2 and 3 because those are the things that were concurrently captured and shot and all that kind of thing. We will have to gear up again to get ready for 4 and 5. So it's just
How many in total is there going to be?
I want to say how many people did we have at the height?
No, how many avatars or at least loosely out there?
Well, two more after Fire and Ash is at least what's been written and what is out there
Okay.
Right? So there's never any guarantee in Hollywood that you end up making the movies that you plan to make, but that's the current plan. So what was I going to say? Anyway. Yeah,
I mean, because it's like, well, what happens, what, like now the crew is gone, and if you need to make changes or there's new stuff coming up, then what happens?
Well, I got to be careful how I say things because there's various levels of union politics involved in all this, as you well know, right? So, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You can make small changes in certain ways, without having to get illustrators involved. Dylan and I are both illustrators, so lucky us, we've got on-staff people all the time, right? And so, for pickups and all that kind of thing, there's a lot that we can get done even with our tiny team of ourselves, and all that. So, but I'll put it this way, the artistic process of concept design on any movie, and Avatar just is in that same category, is a bigger process than just making pictures, right? It has to be translated into, if it's virtual, it's got to be turned into a 3D model that can then be operated on stage. It will then get changed on the fly by Jim Cameron radically because he has the capability to do that, right? You're not going to jump all the way back through every hoop and repeat the process the same way. If you can keep the thing evolving in a later phase of its development, keep it in the virtual realm so that it'll then just get pooped right into visual effects, for final, then you're going to do that, right? So it's like, is it somebody taking a job or a process purpose from somebody else, whatever? I'm not even going to debate that. It's just the practical reality is that any movie set that was ever built, even a physical, conventional one, the final look got dialed in on the day, including by God with whatever weather was offered up, and you know what I mean. It's just like there's a whole process beyond the core, what we think of as the core concept art department, where the thing really comes to life later, and there's many facets to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, I mean it makes sense because I mean at this point, like you said, you already have two permanent, illustrators on staff that can easily handle, the odd thing here and there.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. I was if you don't mind, Jan, I'm just gonna
go ahead
asking. But I was intrigued when you said at the beginning about just some of the imposter syndrome or whatever you would have called it. Even stemming from before. I don't know if you was working with Dylan or James Cameron or it went on before that, but we talked a little bit about how it's not always as glamorous as it seems.
Right.
And I'd love to hear more about what you meant by that.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, there's I think there are people for whom, we all look at Instagram and we look at artists who just like, it's like another evening sketch, whatever. There's lots of people that like truly enjoy doing the work to do the work, right? They're creative on that level. There's people who have, like the guy that I mentioned before, had amazing sketchbooks and all this kind of stuff. And I think it paints a picture where, I don't know, I just want to be an avatar for, and maybe a bad word choice, but a representative of the artist who isn't always like on, you know what I mean? Like not every day is a good day. And there's lots of times when I don't enjoy the process, like at all. The process of sitting down to do the work, I often don't like it. I like getting it done, but it doesn't mean that I like doing it, right? And which, I guess I say these things just because they seem odd and kind of counter to the, I don't know, the vision out there of the kind of super inspired, super in the groove, whatever that flow state, kind of artist that and believe me, I wish I were like that. I wish I were like that. But I find the process to be much more keys into my neuroses and my perfectionism, and I feel like I'm getting caught up in technical problems a lot. And some people are just work right through that stuff, and I get frustrated. And I guess I don't know. Maybe this isn't as interesting a point to make as I thought it would be, but it's a privileged position to be working among people whose talent intimidates you, right? Who makes you feel bad about your own work. I guess I'll just would like to say that it's okay to feel that way. It's okay because A, that means you're learning from being in proximity with people who are so incredible. B, it's good to remember that they have their bad days too, and are probably as more neurotic about their art process than you might think, right? That none of this is easy. So if you're an up and coming artist, and you feel that you're struggling or whatever, just know that that's normal. And the bad news is it kind of, at least for some of us, doesn't go away. That it's an ongoing thing. But the truth is that people who, have that little bit of perfectionism, that little bit of dissatisfaction, the good thing about it is it'll force you to push yourself, it'll force you to develop your skills and keep being dissatisfied with your work to where you'll change and evolve over time, right? Getting a little bit bored with your own style or your own thing or whatever, that's not entirely bad either. You know what I mean? I feel like some people get stuck in a rut and it's like, this is my thing. It's like, okay, even traditional artists, I'm always kind of amazed. I want to actually say to them, and it's obnoxious, I never would, but it's like, I guess you found your thing. Like you got out of art school, you found your thing, and you've just been doing it your whole life. Like, holy shit. Is this fun for you? Like you really that look, huh? Okay, I guess you found it. And I'm sure a lot of them have, problems with that and like wish they could change, but the market of their buyers like expects it or whatever. I'm sure there are people who are frustrated by it. And of course there are traditional artists, or fine artists, I should say, who like are totally unpredictable and do crazy shit, right? So I'm not saying that all traditional artists are like that by any means at all, but I guess yeah, I don't know. It's okay to be dissatisfied and kind of like not quite be able to find your groove. Like I still feel like I don't have a. I think a lot of illustrators have like a hand. You know what I mean? Like they have a way of painting that serves them well that you can kind of recognize it in their work and and it's something that they've honed well enough that they can get into that flow state and just do what they want to do, right? Take the technical challenge of it off the table so that their brain can just do the creative work. I fucking do not have that. I feel like I do every illustration or every project I do, I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel. And I partly maybe to avoid like I don't know, the truth that like I don't know how to draw people, like all these things that like all these faults in my skill set. Maybe I'm just always finding new ways to dodge those bullets like Neo, and I never quite settle into one, but there's a restless kind of not always fun quality to doing the work for me. Anyway, I've now really beaten this to death, but I wanted to say that just because there's probably people out there that watch videos where, here's some guy like just or girl, sorry, I shouldn't say guy, whipping out incredible shit, talking the whole time, like, you know what I mean? Like the demo stuff. That's to me, that's hyper intimidating. Like I would never do a live demo. Fuck that. You know? I
Oh
mean,
my
I think
No,
God.
I've done it a little bit, but enough to know that it's not for me. And
oh boy.
Uh,
Do I
I'm
know that? Because
actually,
I think we
yeah.
didn't we say no demos on this
Yeah, on this channel, yeah,
uh
actually, and I'm very glad to hear. I think we're very similar in that aspect. That yeah, live demos. That if I'm invited to some talk, at some event around the world, I'm like I prepare to death my presentation, but I'm not doing
yeah,
live demos.
yeah, yeah.
That's the only thing I can do. But I'm as much as you're sharing some of your true feelings here, and I really appreciate that. To me, it's like very like reassuring that like even at your level like you struggle and so I don't feel so bad about myself. No.
Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, that's kind of why I say these things because I just feel like it doesn't get said very often, and it's probably much more common than you might think,
I
for
think so,
people
yeah.
to be a little more neurotic about their process.
Well, yeah.
Somebody once explained to me that like a traditional painting is meant to look like shit until the very end. Like that's the process of doing an oil painting or whatever. Is it looks like shit, and then when you're done, it looks good. And I think with any kind of Photoshop painting or 3D or whatever, it sort of confuses that process, right? To where it can start to look kind of quasi-finished or pretty good somewhere in the middle, and it feels like you're getting it done quickly or whatever, faster. I feel like for me, even in the digital world, I have that same thing of where like I hate it for like the whole middle of it. It's like it's terrible. And then finally it's like I'm rescuing it from sucking at the end. And then sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm proud of that. That turned out pretty good. But the process, man. I mean, again, I'm jealous of people who are ZBrush sculptors or sketch artists or whatever it might be who can just dive in and do all that. I still feel like one day I might literally like go back to art school just to sort of deal with some of this head on. Like I shouldn't have problems drawing, a sketch version of a person in a good pose in a costume, even in my notebook to explain something to somebody. I should be able to do that, and I can't. So
it's great to be humble enough to say that. I think that a lot of people don't actually aren't in touch enough to say that. But I was really curious, because you were an illustrator for the longest time, and I've listened to a lot of making of stuff, and one of my go-tos is like the Prometheus stuff where you talk a lot, and Ender's Game, which you also talk,
uh,
uh, and the fact that you do a lot of illustration, and then you went from that to production design,
yeah.
which is a very very different thing, and I'm wondering, is there do you miss illustrating, or is it one of those jobs where you can illustrate as
We
well?
are so lucky because we could just illustrate. I could just turn it on and off. Like I feel like illustrating, I'll do it. If I don't feel like it, I
Oh, okay.
won't. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, because of what I just explained, about the process being a little more painful for me than it is for some people, maybe more often than I should, I will give the chance to somebody else to illustrate something or design something. I think part of part of that is like there is a sort of generous aspect of that I shouldn't just take things because I can. Um, but uh, but yeah, so I still get to do it. So that it wasn't a hard choice between one or the other. Dylan loves illustrating, like fucking loves it, and he would say like, it's a fight to the end, whatever. But like, it's not like for me. Like I can just tell that he's in it, he enjoys it. And so he tends to, like, as he says, he and I procrastinate differently, right? Like if he wants to procrastinate because, there's some fucking thing I don't want to deal with, he'll sit down and do some incredible painting. I'll sit down and do like research. I'll find like crazy photos from the internet of some piece of tech I've never seen before or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I can't make reference packages so that someone else can then take those ideas and turn it into something. Anyway, I think it's a funny line that we procrastinate differently. But in terms of the process, I mean, I think I'll say this, one thing I say to students when on the relatively rare occasions when I get to talk to them, is that, a lot of illustrating is visual communication, right? Whether it's you using your drawings, your imagery to communicate an idea to your boss, the production designer, which needs to communicate then to the director, and ultimately we're all communicating to the audience, right? That's the primary communication is this design going to give the right emotional content, the right intelligibility of what it is, why it is, all that shit that will make it work in the story and serve the story. These are all forms of kind of communication, whether it's visual or verbal. The more you can be a verbal communicator in addition to being a visual communicator, it will make you a much better person in the art department at any level, right? It's just better if you can articulate yourself verbally, right? And so, maybe because I was fortunate to grow up in New York City and go to a fancy prep school, and I was a good English student and whatever, like I've just had certain advantages that it probably in my relationship to my supervisors probably gave me an advantage of being able to like listen carefully, understand what's being said verbally, not necessarily need like a drawing to go with the words because I understand what the visual is based on the words, and then communicate back verbally as well in a way that's hopefully clear enough. I've later on as a supervisor of visual things, I have realized that I rely too much on words and that artists often just don't think in words. They just don't, or that the words that I'm saying aren't just, it isn't clear enough, right? And so I probably rely on that too much. Like a beautifully articulate email when a drawing, quick drawing would have been much better. So it's a little pretentious too, sometimes the length that I may go to it. But anyway, long story short, communication skills at all levels are really important. And I think that if you're someone who develops that, you naturally put yourself in the position to be able to do an art director role or a production designer role or whatever that might be, right? You sort of open up that world of, when you can start to talk about the visuals articulately, at some point you can start to talk about the meaning of the visuals articulately, and that kind of gets you into the next job, right? I mean, I think, in an art director type job, pardon me, you need to be able to speak well because you need to be able to re-articulate the concepts and the visuals and the goals of the thing in order so that someone down the road, whether that's a set painter, who's literally spraying the right kind of grime on the wall to give the right amount of aging or the vibe or whatever it might be, or it's a digital modeler, who isn't quite getting the look of the way those tiles are stacked in a way that feels real and not kind of CG and fucked up or whatever. You have to speak different languages in order to be able to articulate the goals of something to different teams so that the result follows through the whole process, right? You're kind of allowing the creative intent from the earliest inspiration to flow without signal loss, sorry, through processes that want to destroy the original signal, right? Because just that's how reality works. Reality just injects mediocrity and confusion into anything if you don't wrangle it, right? So the communication ability is key to thread that needle through the whole process. And again, like I was saying, at some point you also start to think about, the content of the script, the content of the story, You start to become more privy to what the production designer's thinking, what the director's thinking. Obviously, lots of us are so privileged to get to work directly with directors sometimes, and which is super super fun. And you start to get oh, that's how they think about like the setting the tone of this scene, or that's oh, I get it. This whole thing is about this. It's not like I had some visual idea, but that's irrelevant. It's about father son Bible, whatever that might be, right? And I think just having some, being a thinker and a verbal person more so, as much as you are a visual person, it allows you to unlock that whole other realm. And I ain't saying that I'm good at it. I'm just saying that I'm good enough at it to kind of fake it along. I mean, there are people who are much more, deep about how they approach the work. I'm a little more of a cosmetics person. I mean, like fundamentally, like I really want it to look great, but the ideas behind it obviously play a strong role in the choices you make on how to make it great.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been asked many times, do I want to be a production designer? I'm like, hell
Yeah.
no. Like, there's just no way. Because, I just really want to create.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
find that, the time spent, communicating and,
yeah,
communicating to the director, communicating with your artist, I'm like, I can't do that, man.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I just, I need to shut my door and do my thing.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Because I talk to George all the time about this stuff, and I'm
Yeah,
like, well, why don't you production design? No, you totally could,
yeah.
And he's like, no, man, I just want to do art. Like, just
Yeah.
can't, like that's why I asked that question because I guess going from illustrator to production designer, it could have been a very hard and because you're not really doing what you've been doing for the
There's a
last.
lot of terror involved. I mean, I'm making it sound like it was easy, but no, there's a lot of like, oh fuck, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I mean, literally, like sometimes it's imposter syndrome. Sometimes you're actually an
Mm.
imposter. You actually don't know what the hell you're talking about, And
Not anymore.
no, but I look, I think again, a lot of what makes a great illustrator is also curiosity, right? And so again, I say that like if I want to waste time in a fun way for me, I'm going to go find reference pictures of some weird piece of oil rig drilling equipment that like has a patina I've never seen before, and I'll enjoy that. It's my weird thing. But the fuck, what was I saying? I had a good point to make. Fuck me, man. Getting old. This is another, we can talk about getting older. But anyway, um, I literally lost it. See, I got my brain started processing like yellow equipment and patinas or whatever, and it literally just swerved off the fucking road. Uh, what was I saying? Oh, but okay, the curiosity. That's what I was talking about. So, I think what I would say, and I don't want this to sound, denigrating to to illustration because like in the same way that like a screenplay, right, is the DNA, the story DNA of a movie. Like you have to start with that, right? In the same way that concept illustrations are the visual DNA of the film. It's the earliest, most fundamental kind of definition of the look of the movie. At the same time, I'll say, as you get further into the process, it's not the movie. Like they're pictures. It's not the movie. The movie's the work of art, like ultimately. You know what I mean? So there's a satisfaction in I think that it's not, I guess the feeling that you think that you would have a feeling of loss, right? Of not being able to sit down and quote unquote be creative. You just
Mm.
once you get into different roles, you're just being creative in a different way. And the satisfaction that I have in the position to be able to like look at shot development on the movie when you guys are quote unquote long gone and give notes on shaders, in the final shot of the movie, right? And of course, there are illustrators that do that kind of work at visual effects houses and stuff. I'm not saying that illustrators don't do that, but
Mm.
the privilege that I have, especially on these films, to be involved at so many different levels to ensure that it looks the way I want it to look and so that those friggin' pixels, whether they were photographed or they're digital, end up on screen the right way and serve the story the right way. That becomes the goal as opposed to making a picture being the goal, right? The picture is a means to an end. There are many other means that filter in with the pictures to get you to that destination. So there is a satisfaction to it beyond that. I don't think you'd miss it quite as much as you think, but it is stressful. I mean, it's a whole other thing. And I think part of why I wanted to bring up curiosity is, I think it's good. I always had this, and maybe because I came from a 3D background, maybe because I always felt like I was never quite clan illustrator. Like, I look at the people who are quote unquote real illustrators, who do like amazing cinematic keyframes, like seemingly without effort and, and just in a more painterly way or whatever. Like, I've never been that type of person. And so maybe I've always felt like a little bit of kinship with set designers and art directors because they come from often an architecture background, which I studied and was into. The graphic designers in the department, like I was always a kind of doodler with different media when I was a teenager or even in college or in my training. And it never was just like, oh, I want to make pictures. No, like that, I came to that later. So I was interested in design on a lot of other different levels to begin with. And I'm not saying this is better. I'm just saying this is my experience. And so when I see, set designers using CAD software to make these gorgeous fucking models, right? And I look at set drafting, and back in the day, it's still around, but barely. You got to sit next to some old timer, awesome, hand draft person at a real table using pencils and doing like on pirates. Here they're designing pirate ships and drawing the fucking, whatever you call what's the figurehead, sculptures and shit with all the little, the frills and decorations and all that stuff by hand in pencil to scale on a beautiful big drawing board. I was always curious about like the different ways that people work, and the different contributions they make to the final product, right? And so I think if you have that mentality about it, it's the fascination of like I made a pretty picture it's a little it takes the shine off a little bit off that, and it contextualizes it as part of a team that does many fascinating things to get you where you need to go at the end, and just the set finishing process is a real privilege to be involved with as well. I mean, I think once you've gotten to, think of a set and then walk the fucking thing and see it in its early phases and realize you got to change something about it, and, the final finishes and talking to painters. I mean, I'm like a shader pervert or something. I don't know what it is, but probably because I wanted to be a texture artist back in the day, but like just the sheen of things and the way things look on that level, I'm totally into it. And getting to work with people physically on those things is really fun. Sometimes the materials are the real thing. It's like, I want this to look like carbon fiber. Well, as it turns out, we're going to just build it out of carbon fiber because given what this company does, I'm speaking specifically about Wild Factory doing crab suit and Mako cockpit stuff for Avatar. It's like, it's just as easy for us to really make it out of carbon fiber as to fake it, as to skin it with some vinyl product or whatever. So it's having that, the stress of being the department head and dealing with budget shit and all this kind of stuff is paid back by the fun of kind of bringing things to life in different ways. But yes, you could do it, and George could do it too. I agree with that. It's totally fine to choose not to, but you could.
You can, but well, I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess anybody can do anything, but at some point, it's like, I guess what you prefer to do with your,
of course,
with your time, and just the thought of having to communicate with people all day long.
Yeah.
I'm already like. Like at one Zoom call, I'm pretty much okay. I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's definitely, you better be pretty good with Zoom calls.
There are moments. I mean, it's for this many years, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So there've been moments of absolute terror and horrible hours and stress and whatever, and then long periods where it's just not that bad. Is the reality of it. But when you're in the hard moments, yeah, no, I mean, you're literally like you barely. I was always like offended that production designers would like eat a salad standing and like da. I'm like, enjoy your fucking lunch. What's wrong with you? And then eventually I was like, oh, this is why they don't eat lunch, because they don't have time. You literally can't sit down and eat lunch. It's just your day is insane. So yeah, it does get wearying. But everything does. I mean, I like even doing. Obviously visual effects people, poor people are always like on the verge of dying because of how hard they work. There's all kinds of ways to be pushed, kind of out of your comfortable work limits. Anyway. But yes, it's stressful to take on something that is new to you. Look, if some friend, like some producer or whatever. It's not like I hang out with these kinds of people, but let's just say a hypothetical producer friend was like, hey, I want to do a Western. I want to do like a normal movie, like a rom-com or whatever it is. Like maybe like just take a few months off. Dude, I'd love to have you production design it. I'd be terrified. Like outside of the world of like, you know, mega scale world building and like, you know, all the shit that I can try to talk articulately about, whatever. Like imagine having to go scout like locations in Massachusetts for the remote house location, and then to be thinking about shit I don't know about properly, which is, you know, like what's the seasonal, you know, the weather going to be like, how are we going to get the equipment in and out, you know, how is this going to work, which sets can we do on location versus you know, not to mention how am I going to design a set, you know, and decorate a set with a decorator that's going to explain who these characters are using just everyday modern shit and not like cool fucking vents and, you know, you know, metal finishes and all the shit that I'm used to, you know. I would be very much out of my element there. I think I'm sure I could figure it out, but I would be terrified, right? So even within production design, there are specialties and there are, you know, there are limits to knowledge.
Actually, on
Yeah.
that
Wow.
front, just to continue that train of thought, so the next, like after Fire and Ash, you're probably going to continue in 4 and 5. It's going to take some time until these hopefully come out. Of course, like we know, like the success of each avatar needs is kind of when it's successful, it's going to guarantee that probably hopefully the next one will be made as well. But like
Yeah.
as you mentioned, like let's talk about getting older. Like what do you feel like let's say Avatar is going to take a couple of more years to make for you. After that, like, is there anything you'd like to tackle? Is there anything you'd like to be scared again? Do you want to try making that horror movie in Massachusetts? I don't know. Um,
Yeah, right, right.
or is it like,
Um,
oh my gosh, like I don't want to have anything to do with movies for a couple of years. Like, leave me alone.
yeah, yeah.
Like, what is it for
I mean,
you?
look, movies are amazing. I'm also interested in other types of media and just trying to branch out into different things. Um, I mean, there's only so much I can talk about certain of these things. I
That's
have
fine.
these little like side projects and side ambitions that I kind of just tickle in my free time, you know, while I'm on Avatar. Because again, like a little bit of tickling over many years, it adds up to some substantial stuff that I've been able to do. And one thing is again, I can't really talk about this one, but anyway, like something that's more of an experiential thing and less about a sit down and watch a movie kind of a thing. It involves, it has a film element to it, but it's a kind of it's a form of an expansion into forms of entertainment that are different or beyond film, you know, and for me, the hope with that is to be able to lean into my interest in design in general to create like special spaces that people can experience and you know, kind of in a different way than always trying to make pictures that are going to end up on a, you know, on a 16 by 9 screen. So that's very exciting. I think just to, I don't know, just to feel like I'd love to work on something where my audience isn't just movie geeks. It could be anybody, you know, and especially as somebody who's worked on so much hard sci-fi, that's not for everybody. I mean, we love it, but it's not for everybody, right? And so,
Mm.
you know, I feel a little bit limited in that way. And so the other thing I've been working on, much more than that experiential thing, is a personal IP that I've been working on it for like 5 years or something. It's just such a long process that I have been trying to get into different media with basically no success at this point. And you know, at some point, you'll see it out there on the internet as just me trying to kickstart something, literally kickstart something. You know, but anyway, VR, immersive video, game, animated series. Like there's all these different applications of this world that I sort of started off, honestly started off. I wanted to make a VR game out of it. Actually, I started off wanting to make a Love, Death, and Robots episode from it, right? And then I gave up on that because I had a friend that worked at Blur who talked me out of they don't take random submissions and da, da, da. I should have just sent it anyway, but I got warned away. I then played a game called Lone Echo. I'm going to just sing the praises of Lone Echo. Uh, if you haven't, you probably haven't because almost nobody has. Lone Echo is a PC VR game that where it's zero G, navigation or whatever you call it. And It's incredibly well designed, incredibly good hard sci-fi design. It's a really satisfying game with just like a little bit of a, kind of a character story element that's just enough to keep you going. I'm like not really a gamer. Like I can't tell you how many games I've ever finished, like almost no game. And, I like to dabble in it a little bit, but I lose interest. I have finished Lone Echo 1 and 2. They're just incredible. They come from an era of VR production that unfortunately for me, because I was so inspired by this game, is probably either will never be seen again or it certainly isn't going to be seen right now, right? There was a level of investment in these games that gives them a quality level that's just it's stunning, and it stands the test of time, even though like I want to say Lone Echo came out in 2013 or something. 2013? Yeah, it's pretty freaking
Man,
old.
that's a long time
Was it
ago.
2013 or maybe it was 2018.
It's a VR game?
But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's like Half-Life Alyx, and these games are the best looking VR games ever made, period, by a giant long shot. And they were made a long time ago. And it's because there was money. There was money to throw giant teams at these things and make them properly. Anyway, so just on a personal level, if you have a VR capable PC and you figure out how to use the damn link system or whatever it is you have to do to get your headset working, I highly recommend checking it out. It's as close as any of us will get to being like an astronaut or having like a genuine zero G experience. Like for geeks who love sci-fi and space shit, it's like quasi-religious, some of the moments that you'll have in this game because you truly are having a zero G moment. I can't recommend it enough. Anyway, so yeah, so trying to just, I've been developing a world. There's a whole story behind it. There's a whole treatment of the story, this, that, and the other. It has tons of potential, but man, getting things going when you don't have the backing of a studio or whatever behind you, it's just, I'm just Joe Nobody off the street, basically. I didn't think it'd be quite this hard, but it's really hard. And So yeah, it's just I've got some things percolating. I'm hoping stuff will come together, but and it's got a visual world building conceit that I think everyone who sees it says, "Oh fuck, all right, I haven't seen that before." And that was kind of the goal, was to do something that was a little outside my comfort zone, something that would be beautiful and that anyone would like, as opposed to the death machines of Avatar, which only some of us like. And so it was a stretch into a more historical look, but with a whole sci-fi adjacent twist that makes it not historical, and it's also not like conventional fantasy in the way that you'd expect either. It stood up as a specific thing. So anyway, I will reveal it to the world one of these years.
Yeah, well, I was definitely looking forward to that. It got me intrigued.
Yeah.
Jan, you have anything else?
I'm trying to see.
We're past the 1 hour mark, so
okay.
I be cognizant of the time.
Exactly, we're going on to the 1.5 hour mark, I think.
Sure.
I don't know. Do you have any last question, Emmanuel? Do you have anything we haven't really dug into?
I've asked enough.
We've asked enough. Maybe just like a short one in the end. Like, I mean, what's your favorite? I mean, we talked about Lone Echo just now, right? Like how that's one of your favorite games. Like, what else is just like one of your all-time favorite like entertainment products? Whether it's animation or film or like books or anything. Maybe you can share some of that.
I'm sort of like stuck in I mean, probably like a lot of us, right? Like there's a sort of Gen X generation that came up with like really fantastic, stuff in the 80s and 90s, like Ghost in the Shell, the original, and then Akira, and then, Blade Runner was obviously before my time because I was probably like 9 years old when it came out or something. But nonetheless, it existed on the VHS shelf, and I was able to discover it, when I was an impressionable teenager, and all that classic stuff. 2001 was a huge one for me, and it's not exciting things to say because everyone refers to these same things. But what else in terms of work today? I mean, I'm like one of these people that doesn't. I work in movies, but I barely watch movies, which is just it's irritating to anyone that I tell that. It's irritating to me. It's just my family situation is such that I somehow get browbeaten out of sitting down and just watching a movie that I want to watch like on my own. because of the politics of my family. So inevitably, I'm like, I'm gonna watch this. Like, oh, I was waiting to watch it. Okay, but I can't watch it now. So, oh, so now I can't watch it now. Okay, so I guess I'm not watching that now. They just somehow get frustrated. Partly it's my. I mean, I take the blame. I'm not totally blaming my family, but I just, I don't watch nearly enough of the kinds of things that I should. I end up watching. I mean, I watch stuff because it's like up for big awards, or I watch something because it's like a hot TV show that my wife wants to watch. So, or it's a hot TV show that my wife doesn't want to watch. Occasionally, I'll just knuckle down and just do it. I mean, Severance is incredible. I love it. I mean, everyone does. It's nothing crazy there. But what else is good right now? I mean, we watch Slow Horses, which is just has nothing to do with anything that we do, other than
Oh, it's good. It's good. I love that one. I love that one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Slow Horses is good.
I enjoyed there was a something that I want to say Patrice, who does the Dune movies, production designed something that was a Swedish or some kind of Scandinavian director called I want to say it's called 1899 that was on
Oh yeah,
Netflix. I'm just pulling random shit out of my ass now, but
he's
as far as
Swiss German. Yeah, the Swiss German
okay,
director.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was great.
Okay, got it. I think he also did Dark, which I have not
Yeah.
seen.
Oh,
Right?
Dark is amazing. Yeah.
I know, but again, it's like I literally, my wife's like, it's too dark. Like, I'm not gonna watch that. I don't watch it.
And
At
it's
some
in
point,
German. You have to read subtitles. Oh my God.
yeah. Oh God, that's true. But anyway, I thought that was cool, in the sense that it's like a high concept thing. You know what I mean? It really has a sort of mind fuck quality and a mystery to it of trying to figure out what's going on. And again, was it perfect? Were all the performances perfect? This, that, and the other? No, but there were some really interesting visuals that were thought provoking in it. And so I like stuff like that.
Mm.
I mean, we lost the ADG awards to a movie I don't mind losing to at all, which was Everything Everywhere All at Once. And like movies like that have heart and that have some interesting, kind of conceptual twist and a lot of heart. I mean, that's clearly my favorite type of thing. For whatever reason, I will watch Harry Potter movies whenever they're fucking on, and any plane flight, I will just rewatch. I mean, the third one, the Quaron one is incredible. Like, it's the best one. But so I'll
The
rewatch
third one is what? The Phoenix or
the
the Phoenix?
Alfonso Cuarón one. I want to say it's
The Prisoner of Azkaban.
The one where they have
Yeah.
the Tri-Wizards Cup. Or something.
No. That's the fifth one. It's the fifth one. Sorry, I know all of them because my
it's
kids
the one where they introduced
just got
Sirius
really
Black.
into it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
the Prisoner
that
of
was good too,
Azkaban.
yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just tonally, like it was just, it took a jump from like kid movie
Oh
into
yeah.
maturity, like all at once with that movie. And I think Cuarón did such a great job of just saying, no, a Harry Potter movie can feel different. It can feel a
Yeah.
little more indie, a little, a
Yeah,
little
my
more
kids were
artistic.
scared suddenly of that one. They were like, "Oh my God, what's going on?"
Uh-huh,
It
uh-huh.
felt different. It felt different.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
Sweet.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a
How
good
about you
point
guys? What are
to.
you watching lately
Oh,
that you
okay.
recommend,
Okay.
or any movies that?
Well, Jan watches weird stuff.
I'm more really in the corner of like I mean I watch the things that like you said like I'm supposed to I feel like I'm supposed to watch the big entertainment products and I always come away from it like very disappointed
Uh-huh.
and I was gonna say like before the previous week I would have said like oh my gosh I haven't been in the cinema and seen anything worthwhile in a long time no matter if it's tentpole or anything but then
Yeah.
I watched one battle after another the new Paul Thomas Anderson
I've
and
heard good things about it. It's good.
it was amazing. I mean,
Uh-huh.
don't ask me how they spent 180 million dollars on that budget, but the movie's amazing. The movie is just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yes, this is cinema. This wants to
Yeah.
say something. The performances are just like through the roof.
Nice,
Um,
nice. All right, I'll
so
definitely
that
say
was
it.
one of the rare things where I'm like, okay, yeah, that's still good. I mean, it's Paul Thomas Anderson. Like can't
Yeah.
it's always good. But other than
I mean,
that,
seeing the
yeah.
Dune films in the theater is worth it, right? I mean, I'm sure you've seen Dune,
Yeah,
proper theater. Both of those
well,
are, just the
exactly.
soundtrack, like your balls off alone is worth the
Yeah, of
theatrical
course. Yeah, and the
experience.
sound design, yeah,
Um,
for sure,
I
for
think I saw
sure.
Alien Romulus in the theater. That might be I don't go to movies enough, and it's so obviously like oh, people don't go to movies anymore, and I'm an asshole that also doesn't go to movies anymore. But Oh no, F1 was the last movie I saw in the theater, but Romulus is a fantastic movie. F1 was really enjoyable. It was too loud in the theater, like it was
Yeah.
genuinely
Oh,
abusive.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like crazy, but I got through it, and it's a fun movie.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. But other than that, I just watch like I don't know Korean dramas and like food shows and that kind of
Okay.
stuff. That's usually what I watch.
Every
Exactly.
once in a while, I'll do something random. Like I watched all of Love Is Blind Japan. Like I have no idea
Oh
why.
my God,
Oh, now
no.
I've
it
never
comes
seen
out.
any of the. I don't watch those kinds of shows. I've never seen the Aussie one or the American one or any of that shit. I just was like, I'm gonna watch the Japanese one, and I was fascinated by it, and I'm done. I have that whole genre out of my system now. That I like watch the whole thing.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You're gonna hate me for my horrible taste, but I actually started
no.
watching K-pop Demon Hunters last night.
Oh my gosh,
No, that's pretty good.
my kids have watched that more times than I can count. It's like the
Really?
new favorite thing. And the funny thing is
Nice.
that my son is way more into it than my daughter. So I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
Nice.
I
hilarious.
thought it was decent.
Yeah,
It's great. I mean, I
I
love
like
it.
it.
It's good.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's a giant music video. That's all it is, but it's fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So
On that note,
Arcane, but I have to mention Arcane.
oh, okay.
Yes.
Arcane is the single most impressive thing that I think I've seen in many, 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 many years. I'm sure you
Yeah.
guys can
Yeah, every
relate to that. I
frame
mean,
is just beautiful. Like
it's
I
unbelievable.
I do like the first season like more from like the story
Uh-huh.
point of view, from the character point of view, more than the first one, the second one. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
every frame a painting, right? Literally, right? Like it's so
Literally,
yeah
yeah,
expensive. It looks expensive and it looks good.
it does look expensive. Yeah, yeah. But you could just feel, I mean, just the creative integrity of like clearly artists being allowed to do their thing and being listened to and being set the highest bar to try to achieve. And it's just crazy. It's crazy. I mean, what all of us work in movies, and we know the sort of like the impossibility of actually shepherding really great work through the grinder. And the fact that that got made is some kind of a miracle. And to me, I think it's that good. I mean, okay, so the lip sync's a little fucked up in certain shots, or whatever, but it just doesn't matter. Like the story, the script is so good. The integration of the musical numbers is so great.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, for once, I'm quite happy that like the microtransactions and all those Riot games are actually paying for something interesting, right?
Paying for something good. Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, okay, let's
I'm
wrap
going
it
to tell
up
you a
here.
painful
Yeah,
story.
sorry.
I'm gonna one more thing. Yeah, see the
Okay.
Blade Runner behind you.
Oh yeah.
On Prometheus, I wanted Ridley to sign my Blade Runner Blu-ray, so I took it in and I asked him to sign it, whatever. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's such a nice guy. He's like, who should I dedicate this to, whatever. I was like, oh, it's just for me. And then the look of like kind of sad disrespect that passed over his face. And he did it. And he handed it back to me, whatever. And then I fucking lost it. I don't know where
Oh.
it is. I have a Blade Runner Blu-ray with Ridley's signature and Bill Skinner who drafted the fucking spinner vehicle build. He signed it too, and I fucking lost it because I'm that kind of person. So anyway, good times. It just made me
Okay. Oh my gosh, some person somewhere found this in the garbage and now he's very happy.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully he knows what he has.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, anyway, thanks so much for taking the extended time today to talk to us about
My pleasure.
everything. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And to everybody who watched, I hope you found this as interesting and uplifting and curious as we did. And see you guys in the next one. Okay. Thank you.
All righty, we'll do it again sometime.